But ready when you are.
Okay, awesome. So first of all, speaking of the concert we had, right? The one thing you did is you really liberated people with the movement. And in orchestras, we don't really talk about movement, but that was one of your big points. So what do you think is so liberating about, moving?
Oh, I think that you started off exactly correct. If your
Sweet.
question to me additionally was, what is the most important part of expression and expressing music on a stage? Remember, Jay, we're not in a room in our basement practicing, to nobody.
Yeah.
When I'm doing that, I've got my hair in my ponytail. I'm working. No one's looking at me. Now, what a musician's job is not to be in a practice room all the time. Musician's job is to be on a stage, to engage humans. So, Jay, remember, we're engaging human beings, not animals, not plants, not insects. Humans are the only people who can respond to music.
Sure.
So how do musicians, great musicians, express outside of their music? Now, as we know in the classical world, not all the time, Yo-Yo Ma moves beautifully. The Vienna Philharmonic moves beautifully. Orchestras move beautifully. But generally, it's a topic that for some weird reason, and I don't understand it, we don't discuss it, as you said. And the way as you watching the way I'm talking to you, I'm using my hands, I'm using expression instead of me talking like this for the next hour and not moving at all and not having an expression. That would drive you nuts, and humans can't relate to that.
Sir.
So yet, why do then we play, unfortunately, robotically some of the time, half the time with classical music? Is because our pedagogy is sort of in a little bit of a box right now. We need to update it. Now, remember, Jay, that 99% of the world, not 50%, 99% of the world do not read music or have music stands on the stage. Like Celtic music, African music, Indian music, rock, jazz, hip hop. The list is so long of musical styles that require just memory. When you go to a concert, these musicians who don't have a music stand anchoring their body, they don't have anything in front of them. They're moving, they're walking around, they're having eye contact. So not only, Jay, are we talking about moving and feeling and expressing with our body language, but equally important is that we have ability to engage an audience with something that's invigorating and tactile. When you go to see a concert that's non-classical, if those musicians were stiff and robotic, oh my God, you would turn that thing off in a second. But yet with orchestras, we have patience with that because it's a beautiful art form that's been around for 400, 500 years. But yet, remember, I don't know if you know that in the Renaissance period, about 400 years ago, orchestras stood up.
Oh, yeah.
So that's an interesting thing that now we're sitting down and now we're looking at the back of the conductor, which is rule number one. Never face the audience with your back.
Never turn your back. Yeah, I remember.
Right? So it's like, well, what? But of course, a conductor can't conduct an orchestra facing the audience. They have to face the orchestra. So there's so many opportunities for us to redefine our classical world in a positive way without replacing or removing the tradition. And that's one of the things that I love doing with my music.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, the movement, I can speak from my experience. The movement was really liberating. And now whenever I play, I really move it, and other people are trying and other people are getting it, which is, it makes me happy. It's nice to see everyone enjoying it and smiling. And I think that was brought upon because of you and you coming to our orchestra and really opening it up.
Well, thank you. But remember, Jay, you need to be the example. Some kids your age, in fact, most kids your age are very shy and not and withdrawn. They don't want to be the leader. They don't want any attention drawn on them. They're watching the other kids like you. And if you start to move and do something that's really, really interesting, they may follow that, but they will not be the leader. So you have to be the example. And remember, when down bow, you move right, up bow, you move left. How easy is that?
Yeah, exactly.
A trumpet player clarinet player, tuba player, drummer, they don't have the ability to do that like we do. So I think that there's a new world order that's happening with string playing that I've been spearheading for the last 40 years. So yeah,
It's
it's
the
very
rebellion.
ingrained in me.
Okay, sweet. Yeah, thank you. So my next question is, we talked about like liberating, right? And how movement is super liberating. What about genre blending? Do you think that musicians as a whole should stay in their lane and stay in their genre, like for classical, stick to classical, or rather should we be implementing like the improv of jazz and the, you know,
Yes, Jay, you need to be part of what we're doing because you get it. And it's not that, it's not that difficult what you figured out.
yeah, it really isn't.
It's not that difficult to observe. And Jay, what you're doing is you're observing culture. And that's my favorite subject. I love watching humans' behavior, positive and negative. And how do we focus humanity to be more harmonious and more peaceful and more like this than like that?
Yeah.
This is not good. This is what we want to do. So, music to me and to you, um, especially African Indian music, I adore. And it's such an uplifting experience that it's so important that we learn from other styles. And that's the trick, because what's happening with our wonderful orchestras, and by the way, Jay, as you know, if you saw what's on my music stand, do you want to see what's on my music
Yeah,
stand?
sure. That looks terrifying.
Oh my God, every day, guess what I play?
Oh, I have those books. Okay.
Right? I do
Yeah.
Bach, and I do, and this is also the Bible Sebchek.
Oh, yeah.
It is awesome. The change, I did it for an hour every day. I still practice. So the music is not the issue. The composers are not the issue, because it's Stravinsky from Beethoven. About, I mean, these are the gigantic, iconic composers. They were the innovators. But what has happened in our pedagogical world, which is our schooling of music training, is that string players tend to, a large percentage of actually go to conservatories. They don't go to the local, bar and play rock and roll. That's not school to them. Whereas Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, John Coltrane, Celtic players, they go out to a social environment to create music. Classical musicians go into more of a classroom environment, which is fine. But that classroom environment, unfortunately, does not resonate with what we need in the 21st century. And Jay, that's really the topic that you want to share. Where are we in our culture, in our progressive world? In the 21st century, where you look at the last 100 years of culture, from the industrial age to technology and development to two wars we're having right now. Humans still want to hurt each other. That doesn't make any sense to me after all the centuries of us behaving with barbaric sensibility. We still can't figure it out. That peace and love and music and being together, and also, and I don't mean to go on a derivative, but differences in culture is what brings us together, not tears us apart. Your culture, my next door neighbor, I don't know. But for us to work at being in a harmonious relationship, we don't have to agree with everything. That is critically important for the future. Now, how does our music play into that? Obviously, when Taylor Swift is doing billions, not millions, but $4
Yeah.
billion. I don't listen to her music often, but it's pleasant. It's not the Rite of Spring or Stravinsky or Bartok or Led Zeppelin or Metallica, which I prefer listening to. But you can see the amount of people who are thirsty for that connection with other humans. So I think it's a challenge right now for our pedagogical symphony orchestras I just spoke yesterday with a director of a symphony that I'm going to be working with, and they're having trouble getting people to come to their concerts. They're having trouble um, positioning classical music as a relevant thing in the 21st century. I don't like, the cliche. I don't like to listen to classical music. Oh, that's old people's music. That's, from Europe, white people's music from Europe. Yes, they were Caucasian, most of them, but we are discovering a diversity that exists also that we don't celebrate enough. Number two, we also do not revere or put in a classroom study situation non-trained musicians.
Yeah.
Now that's a real important thing, Jay, to understand. For me, I'm completely trained. Juilliard, as you know, my family background, my mom's a concert pianist. My brothers are all classical musicians. I grew up on classical. I love it. Will always love it. But when I bumped into rock and jazz and hip hop musician, and where's the music? And they would say, Mark, play something. I said, well, play what? Well, I don't know, play something. And I couldn't. I couldn't play one note of my own story. I was like 19 years old at the time, at 20 when I was at Juilliard. And I was like, wait a second, something's wrong here. I can play Beethoven and Stravinsky with my hands tied behind my back. These knucklehead rock musicians cannot do that. Do they care? Absolutely not. What they do care about, which I learned very quickly, is self-expression. What's Mark Wood's story? Is it the same as the other viola player sitting on my stand partner? Am I identical to that person? Am I identical to the second violinist? Absolutely not. We are such different people, yet the beauty of the orchestra is creating one with 100 people. So I get that. But when you go outside of the orchestra experience, which is a very, very narrow experience and a small experience, and worldwide, by the way, when you go out to your friend's house who plays guitar, he can't read music. Your new friend plays drums, saxophone. Let's jam. And all of a sudden, I can't play. I don't know what to do. I don't know if you've had that experience yet. But if your question to me is where the power of music is bringing people, musicians together in one room, communicating instantaneously and spontaneously with music that has never been heard before. And it's called improvising, which Beethoven did all the time. Anyway, sorry,
No, all good. I love
I
it.
hope I'm not rambling.
No. Yeah, during COVID, right? That's where right before this interview, I was playing guitar. But
Oh, you play guitar?
I play guitar. I love
Who's your
guitar. I love rock and
who's your
roll.
favorite guitar player?
So my favorite band right now is Queens of the Stone Age, which I'm afraid is
Oh,
gonna ramble on about them, but
love them.
I love psychedelic with stoner elements and heavier elements. That's what I personally like. But I love Pink Floyd and Genesis. I gotta represent.
How did you get into that music?
Well, I'll tell you. So what happened was during COVID, everyone went through this, really depressing phase, except I'm too young to be depressed. So I was like 9 and I didn't know sadness. So I was convincing my parents to get me the really cheapy guitar set. And for the first time, they said yes. And I was super surprised. And I tried doing the lessons, like the guitar lessons that came with it. And I learned I don't really like structure in guitar playing. In violin, I rely on structure, but then it made
Right.
me realize, why am I relying on structure in violin if I don't like it in guitar? And I rediscovered myself through guitar, and through that, I rediscovered my passion in violin. And I found Eddie Van Halen. And I remember my mom was working, and we were sitting down on the couch, and me, my brother, and my dad were all just on the phone watching the video of Eddie Van Halen play Eruption. When he passed away, that was a really sad moment for me. I have a poster up on my wall because that felt like a major loss in the music community. But through that, I learned so many people, and I was strictly rock. Like Taylor Swift, you're talking about. All the girls in our school hated me because I would trash talk Taylor Swift, which now I realize is not the best thing, right? But I could not stand her music until my 7th grade science teacher um, re re-taught me different genres, and I learned about jazz, John Coltrane, Alan Holdsworth, and
Oh,
this crazy new era and weirdness in music. And the first time I listened to it, I thought this is garbage. Second time I listened to it, I thought this is genius.
right.
And I've been on a streak ever since. I love progressive rock. I love jazz. I love everything, and even Taylor Swift. There are beautiful moments to be had in Taylor Swift's music. It may be a little commercial for me, but you can find love in
Wow.
the.
How did you bump into someone like Alan Holdsworth, though?
I wish I would have met him.
Yeah.
My biology teacher had an Alan Holdsworth shirt on the day after he had the Jaco Pasteria shirt on. And so he basically taught me everything. And during summer, I asked him, what are some recommendations of listening? And first on his list, we already talked about Alan Holdsworth and stuff, and he showed me some recommendations. But on his list was Genesis, Yes, Pink Floyd. I learned about Animals, which is one of my favorite albums of all time.
Yes.
And I mean, it's just,
Well,
it's
David Gilmour. Ah,
just more. It's incredible. That's what I thought, that shredding was the way to go, and I still love shredding. But a lot of shredding can be meaningless. And David Gilmour
right.
showed me that you got to have that passion. You got to have
Yeah.
that bend, and that's why I love Animals, is because it's so angst filled and it's so angry and it's like punk. It really is like punk, and I love my punk music. And it really is super punky, and I mean, man, that's real. That's my music.
Real. What band would you say would be the king of that punk movie that you like?
So, right now, so it's been changing a lot, but right now, one of the interviews that I'm having in the future is with a guy named Callum Rooney, and he's a artist, a album cover artist and a poster artist from New Zealand, actually, which is it's
Hmm.
awesome. And I found out because he made my poster from Queens of the Stone Age, and through him, I discovered a load of other artists because of their album covers.
Right.
And there's a band called Communicant, 3,000 monthly listeners, and oh, they are like a psychedelic trip, no drugs needed. I don't know if you know the band Tame Impala, but
Yeah.
they're like Tame Impala only with a load of mushrooms. And I love it, man. But
Well,
I
I'm fascinated that you pursued investigating.
oh yeah.
You're bumping into some very powerful music, and thank you. I wish everybody was like you.
I've been converting people, right? So with Queens of the Stone Age. So you asked me what's my favorite music. Right now I love clean breakdowns. Really emotional music with a clean breakdown with a sensory overload, and it stops. And then you get to reflect on it. And so
Right.
Queens of the Stone Age, in my opinion, are the masters of that.
Right.
And it's so funny because you can tell I'm a little bit of a nerd, and I'm in my nerd classes and I'm friends with a lot of nerds, and I have transformed them, right? So we were walking to Golden Corral for a volunteer opportunity to serve the veterans. I was singing Go with the Flow, which is one of their hit songs. And my friend who is a nerd, Yosh, if you're watching this, who I never would have expected to know Queens of the Stone Age, he started singing back to me. It's crazy
Really.
what music can do. We're all being liberated. And I want to talk about that because now I'm rambling. You talked about ethnic
No.
music.
By the way, how old are you, Jay?
Just turned 14 in November.
Oh my God, dude, I'm voting for you.
Oh yeah. Thank you.
Whatever you do, I'm voting for you. And you got to come to my camp. Because
I'm,
if yeah, we'll talk. We got to talk.
um, when we had our concerts, people who don't know this, Mark Wood came to our orchestra program and revitalized everything. And we had our concert, and the four amigos, we all wanted to do Mark Wood, your camp, right? What's it? It's Mark Wood Rock
Right.
OC.
MWROC.
Yeah. And it looks amazing. And honestly, we all wanted Vipers. That's what I went
You
through your
need
site.
vipers.
Yeah, I went through your site and we, screwed around and customized it, and we all had our each own. But money is expensive. And I'm doing New Mexico with my scout troop, and I've got to pick and choose my my battles, my family, and what
Oh,
I want to work.
right. Oh,
So
it's at the same time?
around, yeah. I'm gonna
Okay.
be gone for like 2 weeks in New Mexico, so it's just right next to Arizona,
That's
and
right.
hiking the
Where in New
mountains,
Mexico, by the way?
Cimarron. So it's about a 3-hour drive from Albuquerque.
South, right?
I'm not sure.
I think it's south. Yeah, I love New Mexico. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I love
Beautiful, but
Arizona, man.
fascinating. We have scholarships, and Jay, we'll talk off air
Sweet. Yeah, thank you.
on that possibility. If it's not this year, it's next year. You need to
Yeah,
be around the kind of people
want to
that
go.
we have nurtured that are just like you, that you're going to meet people that you'll have friendships for the rest of your life.
I know it. I know it.
It's very interesting moment for us. Very interesting. It's also proof when you're speaking this expressively and passionately, it's proof that I do know that the power of music is at play here. You're open to new things. You're curious.
I definitely am.
You know, when I speak to a kid in an organization, hey man, what kind of music are you into? And I'll never forget this kid a couple of weeks ago said, "Oh, I don't listen to music."
Oh,
What? So yeah,
imagine.
it's an interesting thing about the music programs. You know, the one that you are part of, the teacher's fabulous. I had a great time. I remember you very, very well. It was super cool.
It was awesome. So I want to speak on the ethnic music, right? So you talked about African and Indian music. I recently got into this band called Goat, which if anyone watching knows Goat, you're incredible. Goat is this weird, I believe they're Swedish, weird Swedish ethnic band. And they take the African music and they take the sitar and they take the all these cool ethnic instruments and make psychedelic music. And
I
so
think I know who that is. Yes.
yeah, they're incredible. And you remind me a lot of George Harrison because, first of all, you just look like George Harrison and you're creative like George Harrison, but also the psychedelic music, the ethnic music. You know, George Harrison moved to India and became immersed in that music. But what is so, I know what's for me, but for people who don't know, what do you think is so weird and so cool and and so listenable about ethnic music that a lot of listeners can't find in pop music. They can't find in rap, in the popular, the Billboard. You can't find
Right.
that sort of stuff on the billboards. Why
Well,
do you
you and
think
I
that is?
we could talk for hours on that subject. So we don't want to do that because people will tune out and space out. Ethnic music, specifically for me personally, of course, African music, and of course Celtic music, and of course music from China is powerful. Appalachian music from America,
Oh yeah.
very very interesting stuff. It's sort of like music of the people, but I found that with Indian music, for me, I've never experienced a sensibility about sound with such expertise and such training that's required to play Indian music perfectly with ragas
Oh
and
yeah.
then improvising.
Yeah.
Um, it's as close as classical you can get with that kind of discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline is a really cool thing. When you talk about Alan Holdsworth, when you talk about these Prague people, there's a lot of discipline that comes to controlling your musical instrument, right? But with Indian music, it is so, for some reason, it goes very deep into my heart and my persona. And I have no connection to the culture with my genetics. I'm British, I think, um, from hundreds of years ago. So
Yeah.
Indian music has zero connection to me ethically, genetically.
Yeah.
But when I heard that for the first time, I couldn't believe it. And then one of my best friends is one of the masters of Indian music, whose name escapes me for Junith Mysore. He's incredible, incredible, and I got a chance to play with him and watch him in concert. So Indian music really has that special quality that is you're at the edge of your seat. You don't know where it's going. You don't know. I don't know. Do you listen to Indian music much?
I'm Indian. So, funnily enough, I grew up with Indian music and I was never a fan until I heard some old songs and I heard some weirder songs, songs that aren't really as popular. And I gotta say, man, sitar is such a wonderful instrument. And so I'm getting there, but because I was so familiar with it, I'm not quite as interested in it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. You're still young. You will find your way to identify with that. But that for me, that music is Yeah, I guess growing up with the Beatles and hearing George Harrison with the Indian influences
Yeah.
on Sergeant Pepper's, which is incredible, and then working with Ravi Shankar opened us hippies to this great music. What is this stuff? But for me, let's see. I'm not sure if you're going to hear my violin.
Want to try? And look at that. That's a beauty. Ladies and gentlemen, the Viper.
Now, can you hear this?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think it may just be in your earbuds.
Okay, I'm going to put it in my speakers.
That's the
Uh,
original, isn't it?
yeah, this is the one really one of the first Vipers. Of course, where's my bow? Oh, there it is. So I'm going to turn up my speakers in my room. Can you hear it?
So it's cutting out a little bit. I can hear, I get.
Okay, so to pronounce it,
Yeah. It's like sitar. Yeah, I heard like the beginning, but I didn't hear any of that end. But I see it, yeah.
sorry, yeah, I guess my rig's not plugged in, but even with a Viper 7 string, I can create a Middle Eastern tone sensibility. And I have frets on my Viper, so it doesn't
Beautiful.
interfere with the beautiful part of that music.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Okay, sweet. I was listening to your music. Well, no, first of all, I'm gonna hit myself. Next time you come to the South, I'm gonna take you to all the best Indian restaurants, okay?
Oh, I
And Indian
love
Indian.
Indian food.
We're gonna get you some real Indian food, okay? But I was listening to your album and your last album came out, I mean, quite some time ago, and of course COVID kind of really screwed with that. But it's still been a long time. And whenever I watch anyone watches like your TED Talks, your NAM presentations, we see that you have such a psychedelic and such a abstract way of playing, right? So I'm wondering, once you get done to touring, right? Because there's one day you're gonna get every high school. I imagine it'll be someday in the future because you're crazy with your touring. Are we gonna get a psych rock album?
Oh, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to hire you to produce it.
Bet. I
Because
will
you're going to
keep.
listen, you're going to play me some of that music and say, in fact, that's going to be your assignment with me in the next couple of weeks or months. Send
Heck
me
yeah.
one or two songs saying this is the perfect thing, and then I'll listen to it. I'll go, oh, I know exactly. I am working on a new record right now, but it's
You heard
not
it here
as
first, folks. That's gonna be a headline. Watch.
it's not going to be psychedelic. Although who knows what you may turn me on to with music, so I may shift my direction. Who knows?
Yeah, one band that I really enjoy, and they're coming to Atlanta, but I'm so pissed off. Excuse my language for the people who don't want to, but so I'm really pissed off because they're coming to a festival and I can only get one day of the festival because festivals are really expensive. Shaky Knees, if anyone knows. I'm
Oh
going on
yeah.
Saturday. But I can't go on Friday, which is a psych fest day. And one band that is playing, it's incredible. And their name is a little bit off-putting, but they're called Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. And wow, they are. I showed my dad, and my dad, he's an Indian dude, and he was like, "What is this?" And you play there's a song called Cubensic Lenses. There's a little bit of overdrive, but it's just so crazy. It's like driving a
Oh, I got to
motorcycle.
hear that. I got to hear that.
And then you hear it's like a high of clean guitars and the perfectly mixed drums and the bass, and it's man, I need to get that on vinyl. It's an incredible record. It's called High Visceral Part 1. That record
Cool.
is an experience.
I love it. I
It's
love
like
it.
Tool, but you don't get that heaviness of Tool, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, so I mean, new album, that's awesome. I've been trying to do psychedelic stuff with my guitar, but I don't have a pedal board. So that's what I'm
That's the
trying to
next
get
thing.
up to
And
that.
and Jay, by the way, you need to do this on your violin too.
I need to get, dude, I need to get a Viper. I'm
Yes,
gonna
I'll
work
get you
some.
one.
I'm
I
gonna.
know, I know the owner.
Oh, so let's talk about the Vipers then. Before we talked about this, and when I first found out about you and that we were doing this project, um, I did some research and I found out about the Vipers, and I watched this like 12-minute, 13-minute documentary, or I don't know what you would call it. They were just taking you through the assembly line in New York and how that's so amazing. It's like a Fender custom shop, the wood custom shop.
Right.
But we know you have the Stingray and you have these production level models, but you're famous for your Viper. So why did you stick to the custom shop and to the like high quality, like the Stradivarius of electric violins, rather than taking it to a commercial market and baked, like a Squire, just pushing out Chinese remakes over and over again?
Right, right. Good question. I think that it really is not necessarily um, a, um, a specific thing that I'm thinking.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah, I think you've got a little out of
Yeah, I
focus.
don't know what happened. Dang, I talked too much. Here, let me try turning off my video and turning it back on. There
There we
we go.
go.
Oh,
Oh.
come on, come on, come on. There is okay, technology.
Nothing is pre-planned in my brain.
Mhm.
Nothing is. I don't calculate anything. What happened is that people started to see my Viper as being the perfect instrument for them on that particular moment of their careers, and it does require a human being to cut the wood, to put the laminates on there. Um, yeah, you can see that the laminate right here is a thin piece of wood that's not the wood of the actual instrument.
Yeah.
The wood of the instrument is actually poplar wood
Oh,
because of the
cool.
weight. It's lightweight and it's also dense enough that it can get the pickup working, which is this right here.
Yeah, yeah.
But when I started out, Jay, I don't know if you ever saw my double neck, which is over there,
Yeah, I
the
saw it. It's
hand
beautiful.
violin.
It's awesome.
Um, I didn't want anybody playing my instruments. I wanted to be the only person in the world to do that. But the second I started building them, when I was a little older, I was a teenager. Hey, Mark, can you build that for me? I was like, oh, I want to be the only person. Well, here's $2,000. Oh, okay, I'll do it. And I would started building at the same time. Nothing really that nothing really a large production at that point, because it's very, very complicated when you're dealing with employees and luthiers and running a business.
Yeah,
We're hitting our 35th year,
I
35
saw.
years we've been doing it.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's awesome. And now are looking at on social media that a lot of string players are gravitating towards my instrument because I removed the chin rest.
Yeah.
That was a big thing for me. I've been playing, gosh, don't tell anybody, but I've been playing for over 50 years.
Doesn't look it.
50 years I've been doing it, and I'm going to do it, and I feel no pain. And I play aggressively. I play
Really.
rock and roll, no pain because of removing this.
Yeah.
And we have one for an acoustic violin that we're
I
developing.
saw.
Yeah, so
All the
so
models
it's an
are awesome.
interesting moment for me. And if you see in the camp, Jay, the camp videos, 90% of the orchestra are playing my instrument.
They are.
So how do you think I
Freedom.
feel when I look out at 100 people playing my instrument? What other instrument maker, not even Stradivarius, could say
Oh,
that?
yeah.
So what other instrument innovator could experience that? There's
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah.
Because with strings, as you know, you can't, putting 100 guitar players in a room, yikes. 100 drummers, 100 bass players,
Going
100
deaf.
keyboard players, but 100 string players, definitely. That's perfect. So because of that, I can create these massive events with everybody playing my instrument. So it's hard to describe, Jay, the honor, the humble. Oh my God, I'm looking at going, did I do this? Did I, little old me, who I barely graduated high school, I'm self-taught. Juilliard classical music was great, but I couldn't improvise. So I had to teach myself, reteach myself music. So, and my father, is a famous artist and never graduated 8th grade. My grandfather grew up in the early
Worked with it.
1900s, never went to school. They're all self-taught. So my family, who are craftsmen, innovators, and geniuses, never went to school. So my concept of school, as you can imagine, is a little challenge for me personally. I
Yeah.
have no interest in that concept. Luckily, in the 21st century, I'm bumping into a lot of schools who are cutting edge and also innovative and stuff like that. It's a great way to bring people together. But for someone like me, who's really off the beaten path, and I'm self-made,
Yeah.
totally 100%. There's nobody like me in the world, thank God. And I do it my way. And luckily, I have a really successful career, which is really hard in the music industry.
I know. But it's awesome, man. Yeah, one day we're gonna get what's it, the four buddies all up and we gotta go, man. So
Wait, so were they in the orchestra program that I worked with you?
yeah, it was you probably don't remember the names, but it was me, my stand partner, whose name is Sam, and
Right,
then
Sam.
Wesley and Enzo, who I talked to them yesterday, and I camp with Sam almost every month. Sam is going to New Mexico with me. So we
Awesome,
are all still
awesome.
super close, and
What
I
and
think you guys
what's
made us closer.
help me with this school? The name of the school.
So we were at Hightower with Pope.
Right,
Yeah,
right. And that's how close to Atlanta is that?
maybe like from Hightower, because I drive from Hightower to concerts to go see concerts. It's like 30 to 40 minutes. With traffic, it'll be around 50.
Right, right. I do a lot of stuff in Georgia and
I
in
know,
the
I
Atlanta
saw.
area. Yeah, it'd be great to see you and bump into you. What grade are you in right now?
I'm eighth, right? About to go into ninth. We're almost there.
Wow, you're in middle school. Oh my gosh. I'm voting for you, man. Whatever you do, I'm voting for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You need to be the example. You need to be the example because a lot of kids are lost and you are so far, you have your confidence level and your ability to know who you are right now. It's a very hard thing for kids your age to find that, and finding a home, which is not just where your parents are. A home is where your whole body lives and your psyche lives.
Yeah.
That's home, that takes care of you and keeps an eye on you, and you do your best work at all times. That's home.
I mean, that's deep. That's profound. And I appreciate the kind words. But so I'm gonna do this question, okay?
Yeah.
So you won your Emmy, right? You got so many awards or whatever, but I think an Emmy is really a standout because it's an Emmy. But not many people know this. It was for the Tour de France. What I'm
Yeah.
gonna CBS, it's a CBS 2002 Tour de France. I would never, I mean, you maybe would be a cyclist, but I don't really connect you with the Tour de France. How did that happen? I mean, that's so,
Oh, well, Jay, I'll be I have to give you the trajectory. Juilliard, 19, dropped out of Juilliard, became a rock star, right? Into my 20s, 25, 26, 27, I started as I was struggling with getting a record deal with my band. Um, Out of nowhere, this filmmaker came up to me, say, "Hey man, can you score my movies?" And I'd never did it. I've never written music. I've never composed music like that. And of course I said, of course I do. And I was like, oh, I got to figure this one out. And it was like, okay, so here's $2,000, $3,000, and I need you to write music for this type of footage. And I started writing music, and I loved it because I didn't have to deal with my singer, I didn't have to deal with my band, my drummer's problems. It was just me and footage. So I started writing music for the Olympics, and at one point, my music production company, I was writing the themes for the Super Bowl, NFL, NASCAR, all the golf, all the soccer on ESPN, CBS Sports, NBC, and ABC. I was the guy. And in a
insane.
matter of 5 years, and in that part, actually, you know what? I got to send you a video of an interview of me when I was in my mid 20s of writing music for the Olympics. But the film crew came by my studio And I had my double neck violin. I had the hand violin. You've seen my hand violin, right?
I haven't seen your hand. I know the double neck. It's the double neck is super iconic. It's actually on some of Mr. Wood's albums, which is awesome. Whoa.
Yes, this was my main instrument. So it goes around my neck, it clamps on here, and it rests on my chest. So it's self
Yeah.
sustaining. But that was my main instrument. So this
Right
film crew
design.
comes and goes, "This is the guy writing music for the Olympics with these crazy violins." It was so funny. So yeah, that really started. So I did all the Tour de France broadcasts,
Yeah.
and I'm a big biking fan. So it was great. Every year I went to go to France and watch them do it, and get
Awesome.
inspired by the athleticism. And then
Yeah.
how do you write music to bicycle riding? How do you write music to soccer? How do you write music to every type of thing? So it was a landmark for me to experience that. And then the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, we formed that, and that film career ended. And that's 20 years ago. I haven't done any films since then,
Oh, dang.
because then the Trans-Siberian Orchestra took over my world for
Yeah.
almost 20 years. So it's been a
I mean,
great
that's a
adventure.
awesome cause, though. Okay, so one thing that I've got to connect you with is, the Tour de France. If you watch the Tour de France, you know that the most crazy part is the mountains, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know if you heard the story. People who don't know, right? I believe it was the creator who was driving up the mountains to make sure, like the map creator, to make sure that it was able to do it. And he almost died. His car broke, I believe, and he almost died. And they still put it on. And that's like the hardest part of the bikers. But I mean, I've got to say the connections, the music, the sort of music you do is kind of like climbing a mountain. If you listen to Turbo, right, and you hear the music, and even your, like I said, your improvisations and Trans-Siberian Orchestra, it's climbing a mountain. Even though it may be Christmas themed, it may be this themed, maybe that themed. I mean, it really is. You feel the snow on you because, I mean, winter, right? But you feel the snow in the mountains. You see your obstacles. It's crazy how many similarities there are. And speaking of the
Yeah.
Trans-Siberian Orchestra, um, what are the interviews you talked about? So, I mean, Trans-Siberian Orchestra is massive, right? They came right next door, and I would have gone, but it was my mom's birthday, so decided not to do that. But you talked about it's hard to imagine the Trans-Siberian Orchestra being small and playing small venues.
Right.
But you said it happened, and I've got to wonder, you when you think of Trans-Siberian Orchestra is a massive band, and you have Slipknot, which they're also famously have a massive band, and money with Slipknot, according to their lead singer, is tight, right? And you wouldn't expect that because I mean, they are the forefront of metal, heavy metal right now.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, if you think about it, it makes sense. They have like 7 members, and the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, you guys have like 20 to 50. I heard that it's like you got the whole choir and everything. So when you were in the smaller stages of the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, was that like a tight thing? Like, were you guys even making money? Was it breaking even, or because that boggles
Very
my brain.
interesting. And Jay, very few people ask those kind of questions. um, for you and me, the part of life is twofold. You find something you love, and then you pray there's somebody out there who's going to pay you to do what you love. That's the key of life, right? And with music, I do a lot of musical stuff that don't pay me as much as I get paid with other things, but you do it because you love it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do things for free because the love is there. With the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, it was a business, and we had to be very careful, but it took about 5 years of losing hundreds of thousands of dollars before we were at the arena level. When we did theaters at 3,000 seats, we weren't breaking even. We had, in that fifth year, we started at that first year, we had one tour bus and one truck, and that's it. So we had stuffed 20 people into a tour bus. I don't know if you've ever seen a tour bus.
I've seen a tour bus.
But it
Pretty
is
small.
not comfortable with 20 people. But we were all like, wide-eyed saying, man, this is going to be great, because the Trans-Siberian Orchestra, to me, as a classically trained violin player who goes into rock, it was perfect. We're doing Beethoven and Mozart, heavy metal. Oh, I am definitely part of this. And it was an honor to be invited to be from the very beginning to really build this incredible orchestra to the point where right now I think we have 150 people out on the tour, 15 tour buses, 25 semi trucks, and sometimes 2 shows a day. It really turned into a behemoth moneymaker. But the overhead, it was costing us about $1 million a week to keep this thing going. Yeah.
But
And
I mean,
that,
it isn't too hard to believe when you see the pyrotechnics and the
oh yeah.
awesome stage design.
And the road crew and the venues and the amount of infrastructure that had to be created. I had somebody who actually tuned my violins up and just handed it to me as I was
A
going on
violin
stage.
tech?
Yes, I didn't have to deal with anything. He tuned my Viper and he handed it over to me. I just hit the stage. I don't know if you saw on YouTube my videos of when I was performing with them. It was truly fabulous. A good long period of time of my career that I developed, and I was very, very proud of that.
I mean, I'd be proud of it too. It's the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, it was
So,
very cool.
so here, I'm gonna do this. I'm trying to figure out the best albums to talk about. Not best albums, the best questions to talk about. I've got a whole thing here.
All
I
right.
think this is super interesting though. So, Yngwie Malmsteen, I think we all know him, but he gets a lot of crap because people say that he shreds too much without the note choice. Like someone like David Gilmour, he doesn't have that balance. And so how does a violin player or a jazz player or whatever, how does a musician find that balance and hone in on it?
A great observation, Jay, because when you look at Clapton, when you look at uh, George Harrison or any lead guitar player, Prince, there's
Prince was
not a
really cool.
high, although there's Dream Theater guitar player John Petrucci, who's
So Dream Theater came to the Fox Theater, and I was ripping my hairs out because my friend got third row tickets, and they sold out before I could go.
oh,
So,
they're friend. I grew up with them on Long Island, and the keyboard players I went to
and
Juilliard
Billy
with.
Joel, isn't Billy Joel from Long Island? Which he's
Yeah,
It's insane. Long Island has some
that's
awesome
right,
talent.
man. I was right in the center of that
I
with
know.
Dee Snider and Twisted Sister and Billy Joel and everybody. It was great seeing. That's a whole other podcast. Uh, but technique is what you're talking about. The ability to play very quickly. But and Yngwie is I've worked with Yngwie, and he heard my first record and was blown away. Did not know it was a violin, and was completely blown away by the experience. His technical facility is astounding. There are some people in the world, his fan base really like that virtuoso stuff. Now, Eddie Van Halen was equally virtuoso, without question. But there is something additional that Yngwie also has, musicality. And again, we're not here to put down Yngwie or anybody who plays fast. If you ever listen to Animals as Leaders.
They toured with Dream Theater. Again,
Oh,
Professor Nabasi is insane.
yes,
People, you
right.
guys gotta check him out.
Insane control of their instrument. We bow down to that. But we also bow down to a Jeff Beck or a melodic player who just plays one note, and it's all we need to hear is that one note. So it's a balancing of that thing. So I think that the music demands that more than the hands demand that. So if the music demands something that's melodic and sensuous and slow, go for it. But if the music is oh, I want to be burning on that, man.
Oh yeah.
So having the ability to go back and forth is critical.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, I'll need to look something up. You talked about Jeff Beck. Again, my biology teacher got me into him too. And there's this
I like your biology teacher.
You would have a fun time talking with him. Blow by Blow. That's the album I heard. That album is insane. There's a song called Constipated Duck. Amazing name. That is my ping pong jam. That sort of
Oh,
people
that's
who
the
are
record.
listening.
Good for you. But there's another one. I think it was his last one, was Hammerhead.
Let me see.
It was his very last. I think it's called Hammerhead.
He's got so many albums.
Yeah, it's his last record that he put out. So Jeff Beck is an example, instrumentalist with a lot of emotion and a lot of goosebump moments.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure. And the thing about Eddie Van Halen that I really enjoyed is that abstract. Because when you think, he's a shredder, but then he makes elephant noises and he makes these awesome, but it's him. He sat down in front of everyone with his cigarette.
yep.
I mean, how rock and roll is that? It's
Yep.
incredible.
And one of the things that I want you to be also aware of, and your listeners to be aware of, the unfortunate part of Eddie is he suffered from anxiety,
Oh, I didn't know that.
and that anxiety fueled smoking, terrible smoking habit, a chronic smoker for most of his life, which killed him,
Exactly.
and alcoholism. Both of those things combined shortened his life considerably because he couldn't go on stage without having some alcohol and a cigarette attached to his guitar. I didn't care. I still don't care. That's his choice, and he chose to do that. He still created beautiful music. But what's an interesting topic is musicians who are brilliant, who also suffer from some sort of a mental challenge. Fascinates me because musicians need to be on the planet for as long as possible to create that music. But a lot of musicians, their lifespans are very short. So I just want to announce that without question, definitely avoid anything that's going to age you prematurely, because you look at Keith Richards right now and Mick Jagger at 83, Paul McCartney's 81 or something. And Paul McCartney is actually the example, vegetarian, and keeps
Yeah.
himself in excellent health.
And he still
Mick
sings really
Jagger,
well.
yeah. How Keith Richards is still alive, that I don't get, man.
He is immortal.
Yes,
Elton, and Ozzy Osbourne. They are never
yes.
gonna die. We have to leave a good society for them because when the aliens come in 3,000 years, they're still gonna be chilling.
Right. But it's an interesting topic, Jay, to look at these masters, these brilliant, iconic geniuses can't control their sense of health and self. And I think that that's a fascinating. I mean, Eddie Van Halen was not educated, self-taught. He just played his guitar constantly, and he had that magic. But he also suffered from anxiety, so much so that he could not stop with two very bad habits that no one should ever do: is alcohol and smoking. The worst thing in the world. Shorten your life. But it's interesting. I had a chance to spend a little bit of time with Eddie 30 years ago, and I played for him, and he was obviously amazed. And then he would play for me, and I'll never forget. I said, "Man, stop for a second. What was that you just played?" And he looks at me saying, "I don't know what I'm doing. I don't analyze like that." And I said, "Well, what chord was that?" He said, "I have no clue." And I was like, wow, ignorance combined with genius is the key. In other words, it's not really ignorance, it's naivete. Like, he had no clue how brilliant. He didn't even want to talk about how he doesn't like people fawning over him. And I got that, but he just didn't want to see. Like when I do string arrangements for Billy Joel, he didn't want to look at the scores. I bring in the scores, say, "Hey, see, the cello line's going to do this," and he said, "I don't want to see it. Let's play it for me, and I'm going to listen to it." And I would watch his ear analyzing. Okay, the cello right there. That's the wrong note. I need to change that, Mark. I was like, wow, that's a really cool way to do music. Completely instinctual. Instinct is the essence of creativity and curiosity. So those two things, unfortunately, back to the topic with pedagogy and classical training, is that they don't talk about that because it's an unknown. But yet they open their door of the conservatory, they look out in the world, and they see 99% of the world musicians functioning at that level, untrained, and completely spontaneous and on at the moment of life. Split second, like when I played for you, unfortunately, you couldn't hear me.
I heard a little bit.
I played stuff that I've never played before, just out of nowhere. So I do that every single day. So I think that integrating improvising into a school, technology into your orchestra program, it would allow you to really expand your sense of this too. Not only this, but this, because we got this, man. Sorry, guitar players, we got this, and this is
I
this
have a
is
load of picks
awesome.
over there somewhere. And yeah, I've got to say, my teacher, I forgot to say in this beginning. I need to say, give a thanks to Mr. Tompkins because he's the one who connected me and Mr. Wood.
Oh yes, he's
Big thanks to
awesome.
him.
Love
And
him.
Mr. Tompkins and Mr. O'Keefe, both of my teachers, right, at Hightower, they did something really interesting and they let me improvise. They let me improvise when I do solos. We did a Michael Jackson song and I played guitar. I had no score. I just screwed around until I found that I like to switch around with the harmony and the melody until I found something I like. And I think there's an independence I really enjoy. We had a chamber concert, and everyone played the same solo 4 times, and I was the last one, and I just did whatever I wanted, which in that
Awesome.
case was a weird abstract solo. And yeah, I screwed up, but they don't know that. And
Right.
I think that's the thing to be admired about musicians is the fact that the general population, or a lot of the population, is capable of being improvisational and doing stuff on the spot. But a lot of people need the people like you to open the door and to show them the way. Which is for me is music, and for musicians is music, and that's how we learn ourselves, and that's how we get better in other parts of our life. But for a lot of people, it isn't music, but it could be sports. But
Yep.
what I'm trying to say is that improvisation is just, in my opinion, um, the key to almost everything you could say. The key
An up
to opening the door.
an uplifting, but also Jay, your verbal skills of the last hour. Are you reading a script from every word you're
No,
saying?
no.
That would drive you nuts and drive me nuts if you had to, right?
Yeah.
So as humans, we're already able to grab things from our brain and from the universe to express, and you bump into words that you may not even thought you used, maybe sometimes you use the wrong word. Spontaneity
Mhm.
has to exist in human life. Conversation, we have it, the way you think. It's Saturday. What am I going to do today? Oh, I have an idea. Let me cook up some weird thing I'm going to try to do. And, you know, music is a reflection of that in 99% of the world. But in our classical world, unfortunately, we're not exposed to that enough,
Mhm.
which is why the dropout rate, back to this topic, the dropout rate from middle school to high school in string orchestra is like 50 to 60% they drop.
It's crazy.
And then after high school, they never play again because, they don't listen to orchestra music. Um, how many friends of yours go to orchestra? How many times have you gone to the Atlanta Symphony concerts this year?
Not this
Oh,
year. I went
okay.
I went once 6 years ago, and my excuse is that I enjoy orchestral arrangements like Radiohead. There's a song called Spectre they made for James
Yes.
Bond.
Very
And that is
good.
weird jazzy and it's hit tritones and it's hitting each other and it's clashing. And I like that. So that's why I like a lot of the Russian composers because they had that because
Me
of
too.
the revolution and all the crazy stuff going on in Russia. It was almost like dropping your violin, which a sin,
Right.
but dropping your violin and those sounds are incredible. I really like it. That's what Genesis and everything.
Oh my God. You and I need to hang out for a couple of hours.
Oh yeah.
I gotta fly out of here for a second. Let's stay in touch. Do you have one more question?
Okay, sweet. Here. Oh,
Give me
this is
the
perfect.
best one.
Perfect. Maybe not the best one, but one that this is basically my first episode for this new chapter of my life where I'm doing interviewing. And this is a question I want to ask to everyone every single time, okay? You gotta name me 3 albums, songs, or inspirational words that can change someone's life.
It has to be music.
Well, no. So either an album, like a musical album,
Okay.
song, or like a quote or words.
Okay. You ready? Real simple. Number one, Sergeant Pepper's. Say no more. Sergeant Pepper's is it for me. Number two, Mahler.
What's it?
Gustav Mahler, the
Ooh,
great.
I haven't heard of him.
Oh my gosh, Gustav Mahler was an incredibly important German composer, Jewish, in Germany in the early 1900s, Mahler.
Yeah, I got it.
It's a must. His second symphony, about, I think it's like the second movement. Every time I hear it, for some weird reason, I break down in tears. Every time. Number three, an important book, is called The 42 Laws of Power.
Power. I'm getting it up.
Or it's
Okay, sweet.
45, 43
It's
rules.
48. I got it. 48.
48. That's a must. That book I read every day. And there's this new book by a great author named Ryan Holiday. Obstacle is the Way. The Obstacle is the Way is a must, because it sets up situations in life. And by the way, Jay, you're going to experience it like I experienced, like every human experienced trauma and challenging moments where your car, it breaks down. Your friendship gets severed by some reason. This or this happens, or a catastrophe happens. How do we handle that emotionally as humans? I'm involved with a wonderful called Stoicism, based on the philosophy of our Roman Empire and philosophers of the Roman times of 3,000 years ago. I follow that religiously every day. I have a journal, because even at my age, no matter what age you are in life, there's always something that's going to come up that you have to handle in a firm, focused, unemotional way to make a clear decision, so that your life becomes better and the people around you benefit from your smart, stoic, intelligent response to something that is potentially devastating. The book starts off, and I'll leave it with this, is Thomas Edison.
Ooh.
Right? Brilliant. He gets a phone call in the middle of the night. Your factory is on fire. Okay, catastrophe. He goes and calls the entire village and says, we're going to have a party, and we're going to surround my burning business, and we're going to celebrate it, because I'm going to figure out a way to turn this catastrophe and horrible experience into a positive as quickly as possible. And he rebuilt the factory, of course, and he reinvented, and it pushed him to reevaluate certain things that he wasn't aware of until that catastrophe happened. So our ability to learn and to gravitate towards a really harmonious conclusion instead of a panic conclusion, worrying, oh my God, my life is disaster now. Getting over that quick, get over it. Get over it. Let's figure this out. Let's move around this. Oh, I didn't know about this talent that I had. If this horrible experience didn't happen, I wouldn't have learned about myself in this way. So the more experiences you have in failure and success is the way to do it. So that book changed my life. I write in a journal every day, and it's a great, great help. So that's a big, big thing for me.
Awesome. Okay, well, I appreciate it. I'm just gonna say one thing for people who are still watching, and I'm gonna cut this into clips and stuff. But Jay, I'm gonna put it right here, but just the letter J, interviews24@gmail.com is a separate email I made. I am trying to get in touch with publicists and music managers and anyone in the music industry somewhere in the South where I can meet up, we can talk. And Shaky Knees, the music festival, there's so many artists I want to interview, but publicists are a nightmare to find, and they're a nightmare to email. So if anyone knows anyone and you can just email that email, I would really appreciate it. It would really make my day. I'm just trying to get more interviews. I really appreciate you. We got to talk. I'll send you some albums, and one day we'll have a Viper, and I'll have all my friends at the camp. Okay?
You know what, Jay? I want to include you sooner than later.
Hopefully.
I need my team to see how articulate and how worldly you are at your age. It's astounding to me, and I think that we need to empower you, because if you can get the word out for what we were talking about, which is just scratching the surface, I know what's going on in your mind. You've got a lot of big ideas. We need to empower that. You need to be the example for teenagers who are challenged by just survival stuff. Like they don't know who they are. They hate themselves. They love themselves. They are, you know, destructive to their lives because they don't know how to care for them. So I'm going to think of something. I'm going to send you some things, and let's stay in touch through email.
For sure.
And let's keep sharing stuff. I really appreciate your work on this. I enjoyed myself immensely. Hopefully I'll see you soon. Get your teacher to get me back into the high school so that we can do
Yes, we
another
have
one.
to.
Great.
Okay, thank
A
you so much.
pleasure.
A
Yes,
pleasure. Have a
Jay.
good day.